INFJs often talk about how it is not easy for them to make friends, that it is not easy for them to have many friends. Well, perhaps they don't even want many friends, but they would like certainly to have at least a select number of close friends. And you'll hear it everywhere and all the time that friendship is not something that comes easy to them. And I want to look a little more deeply into this question because, as usual, with all things NI dominant, it usually covers over some pretty intricate and complex dynamics around this notion of friendship. So I think that there's two sides to this, right? There's on the one hand INFJs who have quite a few friends, but will still speak to their frustration about those friendships. And we're going to have to look at that. And then there's INFJs who will speak to not having a lot of friends and sometimes express some longing for more friends, but who do really value those they have, okay? So in the first case, the case of the INFJ who has quite a few friends or close acquaintances, they might in fact be the most vocal about struggling with forming friendships. And my sense is that often, I mean, of course, there's all kinds of cases. There's people who really struggle with making friends, for example, if they happen to be extremely introverted or particularly shy. But if we sort of leave those aside for now, there is also the situation of people who don't feel like their friendships are as meaningful as they could be because they are not authentic. And really often what happens is they imagine that the other person is not leading an authentic life, but it often happens to be a projection of their own sense of inadequacy in the face of the demand for authenticity. So we're often talking about compliant INFJs, adaptive, submissive INFJs, who have always this acute awareness that they're not exactly being fully real, fully expressing who they are, and therefore feel this perennial sense of their friendships missing something out that that in some way prevents those friendships from fully deserving the word friendship, and who consequently, these INFJs, feel lonely, feel like without any real friends. But often it happens, at least in part, as a result of their being afraid of true friendship. Because true friendship, you know, and it has that in common with intimate relationship. True friendship requires in some way a bearing of your soul. It requires, you know, getting to the stage where you show the full breadth of your personality, and that is going to include your vulnerabilities, your sources of shame, of guilt, of inadequacy. It's gonna require trusting the other person to receive these bits of information. It's very fragile, vulnerable pieces of information, and to hold them, to contain them, to nurture them. That's how friendship in the deepest sense arises and is formed. But you can easily imagine that in the case of an INFJ who's not comfortable with the world, who's not comfortable with people, does not trusting that people will actually handle them in that way, they're going to tend to conceal who they are. From the moments that you conceal who you are, that you make almost a virtue of being elusive to people, you suffer from it, but it's a defense. In a sense, you bar yourself from the possibility of accessing true friendship. And no wonder that some of these INFJs end up lamenting the fact that they lack true friendships. It might just be in some cases that they haven't conceptualized to themselves the fact that in order to get to that place, they need to show themselves more. The second INFJ that talks about a certain sense of loneliness, I think is an INFJ that's really solidly engaged on this path of spiritualization and experiencing the typical and usual obstacles along that path. It is not for no reason that spiritualization, INFJ individuation, is a difficult journey. Otherwise, everyone would follow it and would all be individuated, would all be spiritualized. And this is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy in terms of what's happening inside you, right? The reconciliation of opposites, the integration of more parts of your personality, your shadow, and so forth. Often, psychoanalytic exploration can be helpful, but or of a Jungian form as well, of course. But that's the internal side. The environment, what's around you, also has to adapt to your individuation, because people, regardless of their type, have a particular path of individuation available to them. But it's equally true that people, regardless of their type, often don't choose the path of individuation. They choose the path of least resistance, which is not the path of individuation. So in a sense, it's less existentially fulfilling to forego individuation, but it's existentially safer. It's seen as a little bit dangerous to individuate, because individuation is a freeing up of your possibilities that are going to change how you are and how you relate to other people. Now, you certainly are going to be more authentic. You're certainly, and in this case as an INFJ, going to wear your particular NI world on your sleeves way more. But as a result of that, some people will struggle. Some people will struggle to be with you in friendship. Right? Now, it's possible to see this as a test of how much the other person wants your friendship, how much the other person wants intimacy with you at that level. But it's going to be one of the pressures in the direction, the temptation to regress back to other modes of relation to the world that are, again, cozier, easier, less existentially fulfilling, less liberating. The seeing yourself in the eyes of other people, the FP function makes this even more pronounced and acute and sensitive. Often INFJs that are really on the path of spiritualization come across intense. They come across in friendships like they want an intense burst of meaning to inhabit the friendship. They're not happy often with being trivial most of the time, or just enjoying things for the sake of just enjoying them. In fact, fully individuated INFJs typically manage to reintegrate the more trivial side of things, enjoy the playful side of things with no claim to meaning as such, or at least deep meaning as such, because they're wiser than those that are sort of earlier in the path of individuation, where they are in some way discovering new powers, discovering new sensitivity to meanings, discovering new meaning-making powers on their side, embracing it more and more, and noticing that it can come across as quite a lot to other people. It can come across as you're not willing to give other people a break. You always want to be fully engaged in those friendships. You don't want like a sort of low intensity friendship. You want a high intensity friendship. You want a high meaning intensity friendship, and you will not be satisfied with anything less. Often what you notice is that the language changes. There is a tendency toward more universalizing statements, more moral statements, more metaphor. There is a change in your sense of humor. The sense of humor becomes a lot more idiosyncratic, authentic, a little strange, a mix of tragic, absurd, and hopeful. So the whole personality changes, which is normal because, in a sense, yourself with a capital S arises from the center of your personality by integration of the different aspects. So this self is going to be a lot to deal with. That's going to be a test of true friendship. But it's true that it can make you feel lonely whilst engaged on that path, because some people might find that too demanding to deal with. And not just because it is intrinsically demanding, also because in this emerging self that you are showing, and that's certainly not lost on them, there might just be a reminder to them, a painful reminder to them, that they're not individuating. So that's going to make them feel a little shameful, a little bad. It's more comfortable to be the smartest person in the room or to be the most virtuous person in the room. It's not enhancing, but it's comfortable. And we're all susceptible to that. It's the same also with these friends that perhaps will turn out not to have been as close friends as you thought they would be when you're individuating. And I think here the crux of the matter, the inflection point is to not give up in the face of that and to not regress, to embrace once again the path of least resistance, because if you fully authentically continue down that path of individuation, you will find the people for you. You will find the people who can appreciate you, and the potential for liberation and meaning is literally without bounds. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video, guys. Don't forget that, speaking of INFJs, I have written 2 books on the INFJ personality. You might be familiar. The Soul books. I'm not talking about the game Dark Souls, but the INFJ Soul books, the Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, looking at how INFJs can find meaning, purpose, and value. And a lot of what I talked about today is covered in this book. I recommend you check it out. That's the first link below, as well as my previous work on the INFJ, the one that kind of put my name on the map, to be honest, The Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality. And that's the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind that you can find to this day. So I recommend you check it out as well. Link is below. And as usual, guys, don't forget that the life source of my channel is your kind donation to my Patreon page. So I encourage you to have a look at my Patreon. You get access to some cool perks, like access to our Discord server, where I'm there most days, as well as some really interesting other people. You also get bonus videos every 2 weeks, every 2-3 weeks, where I address topics of your choosing and go in depth about them, videos of 20 to 30 minutes sometimes. So if that, tickles your fancy and you like to support me in my work, because I could not do it without you, hopefully see you there. Okay, guys, take care. Bye-bye.